I remember when I was 21, I was managing a band, and the bass player came up to me one night and said, "You walk really tall for a short guy." I went, "Well, firstly, I'm not short, and secondly, that's a very nice thing. That's a very nice thing of you to say." Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures of the Cosmic Suit. Today we're on the road. We're going to go and see Ireland's only Hay House author, and that's a woman called Wynne, who's an extraordinary healer. And I'm going to interview her in a beautiful location, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to talk about soul retrieval. Abby did a soul retrieval session on me a couple of weeks ago, and it was profound. And after she saw the interview I did with Gloria Masters about SRA, about child abuse in general, she emailed me and said, "Why don't we do a soul retrieval for lots of people?" And I said, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So we're just going to go meet in a gorgeous location. Got a camera crew this time, so it's a little bit different than sitting behind a desk. And it's good for me to get out, because I'm spending 15 hours a day behind the bloody desk. So keep watching, it's going to be fun. Abby! Let's go do this, please.
Where are we going?
We're going here. Yeah, let's go. The adventure in a cosmic suit starts here. So, Abby, here we are at Belvedere House Gardens and Park in Ireland's ancient East. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks, Mark.
So, we're going to talk about a few things today, but I thought I'd start by just asking you a few questions about your journey, because you are a Hay House author and you've written 2 books for them, is that right?
I've written 2 books for them, yeah, but I've written more than 10 books now at this
10?
stage, yes.
Jesus! Well, I better slow down so the camera doesn't fall over.
Okay.
Kieran's walking backwards here,
He's
so
walking backwards.
let's take it easy. But
Steering him into the grassy.
taking in these trees and the beautiful buildings. But so how did you tell me a little bit about how you started out in this spiritual healing world, and 10 books and all of that?
Yeah. I was in education and I had a science degree, and I was never happy with any of that, living in the corporate world, working, making online classes, that kind of thing. But when I was in my 20s, I had a spiritual crisis, I had an emotional crisis, and I went to therapy, and it was crap.
Yeah.
It was really crap.
Yeah.
I saw him for 6 sessions, and at the end he said, "Sorry, I can't do anything for you." But my traumatized self heard, "Therapy can't do anything for you." So I left distraught, and I thought, well, I have to learn how to look after me if no one else is going to do it. So I ended up doing a degree in psychotherapy, but it wasn't helping the emotional upwelling. It wasn't stabilizing me. I mean, I knew what happened in my head, but I couldn't, manage. What's the word? Self-actualization. It just wasn't doing it for me. So I discovered Reiki as a way to temper my anger, keep my energies down, emotions leveling out. It was great. So I'd go to Reiki every month, go to my classes, everything was great. And then my Reiki master said, sorry, I'm not available. I'm going to do a PhD, won't be able to see you anymore. So then I lost the plot then. I thought, well, I need to learn how to do this myself. So I started doing the Reiki.
That's how the universe works, right?
Isn't it? So I started doing the Reiki for me, but then I'd be in a session as the therapist with a client who's distressed, and I just want to put my hands on them and go, oh my God, no, I can't, because they're here for psychotherapy. And then there was a missing piece. My friend came along and said, I'm going to do a shamanic weekend retreat, and then I literally went and vomited. Do you know how that happens? Like, this was important information.
Well, you vomited at the
I
retreat
vomited.
or before?
No, just the thought of him doing shamanism made me physically vomit.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, there's something here. I have to investigate this. So I did the training in shamanism, and that brought together the energy healing and the psychotherapy all at once for me. So I've been on a journey where I've melded them all together and created something different. And so that's kind of how I work.
So how did you start writing books and becoming a healer yourself?
Well, I started doing trainings, and I was training people how to do stuff because I was in private practice then. You know, it's the way the universe works. My contract ended. What are you going to do? Oh, look, you just finished your degree. Timing is really good. You should, rent a room, go and see people. So I started doing that. People coming with the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, they all would benefit if I taught Reiki. So I became a Reiki master teacher. And then they were like, how will I remember to do Reiki? What will I do? So I made a little booklet for them. Then I thought, well, everybody liked this book. And then that's what Hay House picked up on. And said, can you write us a book on energy healing? So energy healing is very complicated, or it's very easy. And I found over the years what I would do, strip away the labels and be with the energy of what it is, and then create a framework like I did in corporate for teaching. So
the whole corporate thing came in useful?
It really did. The thinking about, online course development, how to teach, how to present things in an easy way for people to understand and practice and be very practical. So I made a book for Hay House called Energy Healing, which basically teaches you how to do energy healing for yourself. But in the meantime, my psychotherapy people were coming in with more and more complex things. I was developing more and more ways for them to work around it, which is really interesting because ultimately it was all about empowering them in their own lives. Because going back to that counsellor who said, there's nothing I can do for you, I never wanted to leave any client feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I kind of built it up from there. I guess I just always wanted to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I saw myself at 4 years old, I want to be Stephen King when I grow up.
Who wants to be Stephen King,
Well,
apart from Stephen King?
I like be in a castle away from everyone and just send all my writing out to the world. And I think I might be getting to the stage where my writing is taking off at that level. I've just written a fiction book about a therapist who weaves together energy healing and psychotherapy.
Is it biographical by any chance?
It's semi-biographical.
This is a 3-part book.
This is a 3-part novel.
It's called The Awakening, right?
It's called the Inner Compass trilogy because it's about clearing and healing your inner compass so you can navigate the world better. So the first one's Awakening, then there's Transformation, and the third one is called Expansion, and I'm working on that one at the moment. You expand and you grow and you become present and unapologetic to show your true self to the world. So yeah.
That's cool stuff. So I'm going to put a link near the video for Abby's work, and we're going to go and sit and talk about soul retrieval. Is that okay with you?
Soul retrieval is one of the most important pieces that I've come up with over the years. It's not, I haven't come up with it, but basically people lose their power all the time, and I think it's really important to be powerful in your life. So yeah, definitely.
Let's go and do it. Let's go. Abby, so let's talk about soul retrieval.
Yes.
I mentioned soul retrieval on the channel recently, and I had a chat with somebody about it this morning. There's a couple of things about it. Firstly, I kind of assumed everybody knew what it was, and it appears that they don't. So, can you explain what it is for everybody?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't start out to do soul retrievals, but what I was looking at was disempowerment, people who give their personal power away. And as I started working with that, I realized it's actually pieces of their soul. Mm-hmm. So I went and looked it up and did the trainings, years ago, and you want to do the best by everyone, you have to go and consult the books again. And what I realized was the traditional shamanic soul retrievals, they make a big ceremony out of it. They make a huge song and dance. I think some of them even, would have a spirit boat surrounded by community. And then if the soul piece didn't want to come back, the shaman would go on a journey, travel to find it, wrestle with it, struggle with it, negotiate it, drag it, kicking and screaming. Sometimes they would put it inside a crystal without it even realizing that it was being captured.
Oh, well, like a butterfly net.
Yeah, and then bring it back to the person who's like weak and wanting and expecting. And when you have the community around you, you go along with it, And then they say, here's your soul piece, and then they take the crystal, blow it into their body. It's back now. And then you, as the person getting it back, would go, and like, oh yeah, I feel that, it's great, And then 3 days later, the soul's like, fuck this, I'm out of here, I'm gonna go again.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes. So I thought, okay, that's not for me, because I like the work to stick. And I think also people knowing what's going on, not being the center of attention, not having a big rigmarole, sometimes doing it very discreetly, quietly, step by step is a bit more effective.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of a person as a house, and I say it to them, your house. What kind of state is your house in? And we're going to invite this remarkable, beautiful, fragile part of you to come and stay with you, decide if it wants to move in and live there forever. And your house is in shit, it's not going to want to do that, right? So let's see, what do we do to clean up the house first? And then maybe we'll invite it for a weekend and see how you get on with it.
Come over
And sit down and talk to it and say, all right, what do you need me to do so you're going to stay? And then there's going to be some compromises made. Like, well, you have to stop drinking after the third drink, it's not doing anyone any good. And then you start giving your power away again. Or you have to repair this relationship with that particular person in order for me to stay. And it's very enlightening for people to hear this. So they go, okay, well then I'll get the cleaner in to help me clean the house up. And that would be like what a healer would do.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get the cleaners in to do a deep clean. That can be any healer at all that's really good at doing that. But then if you're going to go mess your house up straight away, you need to learn, well, what am I doing that's messing up the house? We're not talking about house cleaning here. We're actually talking about soul retrieval. Because then when the house is in good condition, then you are in good condition. Your energy's in good condition. You're peaceful, you're calm. You say, okay, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to compromise. Please, can I have my power back? That's where the power and the soul pieces, for me, merged as the similar thing. So the power is your soul essence without a shape or a name, but the soul piece that comes back could be an aspect of you that's been frozen in time due to a trauma. So let's say if there's abuse or even in a past life trauma that something small can trigger. I say to people, imagine 5-year-olds on little tricycles out on the road, and they all fall over at the same time. One of them is stunned and he's gone and he's lying there. He won't come up and you have to get his mammy to come and put him back on the bike. Another one just picks himself up, gets on the bike and is jetting off. And the other one is okay, but he's dazed, but it's the same accident. But depending on their matrix, the hologram, their soul blueprint, what they're coming in with as to how it's going to trigger them. So some soul retrievals are even past life soul retrievals. Mm-hmm. And again, it's fascinating, this work. That's why I'm always learning stuff from it. I'm always, and connecting in with individual people so that they have that awareness to work with that, because you can't do one size fits all. So I hope, does that answer your question?
It does.
Kind of.
Well, it also brings up other questions, like I think some people are like, well, I have a soul. Why is it in pieces?
Yeah.
Because because we're multidimensional beings, right? Mm-hmm. So the soul exists in multiple dimensions across different timelines, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what your analogy was really good, but I'm also interested in if we could get more clarity on exactly how these pieces of the soul sort of, do they run away or do they get taken away sometimes as well?
When you're saying this, you remind me of the only documented case type of trauma in psychology where they actually say it's an actual thing, that the woman will leave her body when she's getting raped and look at herself from above and not be in her body experiencing that. There's a disassociation there. And then if you were that soul, would you want to come back in? So that's an example of it actually in, let's say, mainstream and clinician practice that there
That's
is
a
a
kind of
disassociation.
mainstream piece of
They
science.
completely accept that as
Mhm.
something that happens, but then they would never do the work afterwards to bring you back
to
in.
fix the problem. Yeah.
So you're walking around, you're dazed, you're confused. You could just imagine like the colors of the life is gone. You know, you lose your zest for living, your appetite for anything. Why would you even bother? And it's because that part of you, that love, you know, the childlike part, the wonder part, the part that trusts everybody that it meets and enjoys life, is said, oh my God, life isn't what I thought it was going to be, and it goes.
Well, it's a bit like if you kick a. I've never done this, but if you kick a dog that lives in your house, the dog's not going to want to come back in the house.
Well, it will, but it'll be
But it'll be
shrinking down.
shrunken
Yeah,
down.
but a piece of it might have gone.
Yeah.
And then after the fourth or fifth time you kick the dog, then it starts
Yeah.
to not want to go. But, you know, you can't, that, even again, that's general, right? So let's say that if you imagine the person with the energy field and the aura, and it's not anything we could possibly imagine. I mean, I often say, do you remember the very first computer that you'd have to put the disk in to load it up? You go and you make your tea, you come back, it's still not loaded up. And then you have to make a full-scale HD animation on that computer. There's no way. That's our brain, and the HD animation is the soul, the spiritual life. So you have to, first of all, allow yourself to understand that you're just not going to understand everything, and then work with the bits and pieces that do work and try to understand and unfold those. So, as I've said already, somebody who comes in to an incarnation or a present life might not be whole already before they've even started. And again, you're looking at all the babies, they all look the same to everybody, but they're not, because the souls are all different, the contracts are different, everything is different. And it might be, you know, to do with love and relationships. So as much as they try to get that soul piece back, until they learn the lesson that they're here to learn, soul piece won't come back. People don't even know that that's a thing. You know, I'm dying to write a book
Well, you should.
about depression and soul loss, because that's what I believe depression is.
Well, I agree with that, but I also think it's to do with demonic attachments.
Well, you see, that's another part of it.
Yeah.
That's another part of it. So you're talking about, how does the soul get shredded up? How do bits and pieces of it leave? We're still in the realm of human when I'm saying to you that people take from other people. People will say something cutting and horrible like kicking the dog. And because that's a deeply loved person in a relationship, let's say the primary relationship, then something in you cracks open and a piece of you will go. Then you're open for demonic attachments to come in, absolutely. It's like lurking in the background, there's the opportunists, like the little rats and the slugs and the leeches and all that kind of horrible energy that just, oh look, there's a gap, I'm going in there. And then take your personal power away over time, and then that's the difference between losing personal power and losing a piece of your soul. So that's kind of how I see it. So there's nothing as harsh or as horrible as how humans behave towards each other. Really, it really is. And then it sets the person up for these other darker energies to come in.
Well, there's also, I first came across the work of Janice Barcelo. Have you heard of her?
No, I
About
haven't,
15
no.
years ago, when my wife at the time and I were in the process of learning about birth, because we've got 5 children, but after the first emergency cesarean, she felt as if she'd been raped by
Right,
that, and,
yeah.
and wanted a VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean, which they don't like you to do. The system does not like you to do this. She ended up having a VBAC and then a water birth, and then the first all-natural birth of twins in Britain in 40 years. Now, the interesting part about Janice's work is that she taught us, and she's been on my channel twice, I've interviewed her twice for the channel. She talks about modern medical birth, especially in the West, being a satanic ritual in and of itself. Which, when I realised this, I then started realising, well, you say humans are terrible to humans, but the system itself, everything within the system, especially the medical establishment, is designed, I think, to eat your soul, or take your soul, or pieces of your soul. And the ultimate is suicide, because then they can take all of it.
They take all of it,
and that's my understanding. If anybody's watching this that disagrees with that, that's your prerogative.
Well, I haven't heard it put that way before, but what I do totally believe in is that they chip away and chip away and chip away, and then you give your power completely to someone else. So, like the medical system, definitely. I mean, I was just remembering there yesterday even, I've had like something exploded in my head about 3 years ago, and I had tinnitus on a scale of 100 out of 10, and I thought I was going to die. So they brought me in for an MRI scan, which is what you do out of fear, because you think there's something wrong with you, but there were signals telling me that I was going to die. So they go and have a scan, says my family. So I'm like, okay, I should. So then they said, no, there's nothing wrong with your brain. but your cervical vertebrae in your neck are fused together, and if you don't have spinal surgery now, you're going to end up paralyzed.
Whoa.
Now, I had been on the verge of nervous breakdown for, I'd say, 10 days before that MRI scan. I was weak. I read that, and my body recoiled from it. But some strong part of me said, that's not right. That's not true. So I went and I brought the letter to a friend of mine who's a back doctor, who said that it made no sense. He had to read it 3 times.
As in back flowers.
He's an Ayurvedic chiropractor. I call him a bone mechanic because he mixes, like myself, he mixes all these different things together to make a very unique brand of how he moves in the world. But he said, if what they said was true, then I would already be paralyzed. And then he looks at me and he goes, are you paralyzed? And I go, no. And he said, well then. And he rips it up and puts it in the bin and forget about it. But you see, I had the right people there around me at the right time, and I also had that makeup where I was going, no, there's something wrong with this. But if you don't have that, if you're completely disempowered, then you're just going to say, oh God, I need back surgery, and you go and you sign up for back surgery, and that's you fucked for the rest of your life with all the things going wrong with your back. So you're right in that way in satanic, if there's an overarching energy pouring down through these systems whose main focus and intention is to disempower everybody, then there's the people who react and respond to that, who follow the rules, so to speak, and then there's the people who don't. I'm hoping this shifting is happening.
Well, I think it is. I think that's why we're having this conversation
absolutely
at this time. And one thing you said earlier as well that reminded me of something that happened to me as a kid is I had meningitis, and excuse me, I had meningitis, and I remember my memory of it was that I was lying there talking to this nurse all the way through it. But then about 10 years ago, I had a flashback where actually I was watching the operation from above, and I was talking to somebody next to me above the body, and I was out of my body because I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Because my parents had been told there was a 97% chance of me dying.
And did you overhear that somewhere?
I must have overheard it. And when I had that memory back, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you did a soul retrieval on me 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
About a week ago, yeah.
Do you want to explain what you saw and what you felt and found and what you did?
Well, again, it's preparing the house for somebody who is not sure they want to be there to come in, and you're not luring them. You know, when you're doing this out of the goodness of the heart, and you're doing a wholesome soul retrieval, you know, you have to... It's really a good relationship connection. So that's what we spent most of the time on, preparing the house for the new guest to come in. And then when the guest did come in, it was like a giant, it was like Alice in Wonderland couldn't fit in the house. It was such a big piece that came in, which is unexpected, but it's part of the beauty of working like this. You can't expect anything. Then we can make your house bigger, right? And that's what you were saying to me earlier when we were meeting before we even started filming this. So you're feeling really big and really strong, really bright and really powerful.
Very expanded.
So your brain, right?
Lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah. So your brain thinks your house is a little house. This piece comes
back.
It's a
stately home now.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Big chalet, stately home, gardens, lake, all the
whole hit.
And that's another thing that's really interesting to talk about, because when you hold yourself to that organization of energy, so I am a stately home, I have all these gardens, I have a big ballroom, it's not like I'm important and I'm brilliant and I'm powerful and I'm superb, but you have a radiance about you, and it's
self-love.
And it's self-love, but it's
without
being
ego.
Mislabeled as pride, and oh, look at that fucker over there who thinks he's so amazing, let's tear him down.
Oh, well, that's been the story.
That's
been the story of my life.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 21, I was managing a band, and the bass player came up to me one night and said, "You walk really tall for a short guy." I went, "Well, firstly, I'm not fucking short, and secondly, that's a very nice thing. That's a very nice thing of you to say." But people have always popped me and tried to put me down and put me down and put me down. But
you see, again, that's another part of the soul retrieval, and I think people need to understand that when they suddenly have all this light back, it's like all of the spectrum, the lights are all there, you're shining brightly, then someone's going to look at you and get angry at you. How dare you? Because if you just imagine for a moment, whatever light in you was missing, that's back, is reflecting to me that I don't have that light in me.
Yeah.
So you're basically telling me, without even opening your mouth, look at you, you haven't done any of your work. You have to do work if you want to be like me. And I'm like, I don't want to do my work. How dare you come into my house with your light, with this, and I can't stand it, so I'm going to have to turn it out. So I'm going to stamp on you to do it, which is, again, why I like to walk people through soul retrieval, so they're knowing exactly what's going to happen afterwards. Because if you didn't know that, and you go home to your trusted relationship, your mother, your father, your brother, your partner, and they react to you bringing this new light into the environment, you're going to go, oh, well, okay, then, and then let it go again, because you're not going to say, well, this is mine, I'm claiming it as mine, and if you have a problem with me having this, then we have to hash that out and take that risk, and that's part of spiritual work. It's not pretty. It's really difficult.
Most spiritual work isn't pretty.
No. The New Age has a lot to answer for. It's not love and light at all. It really is
No,
not.
it's hard fucking work.
It's hard fucking work. It is. Absolutely is.
So, one of the reasons we're talking about soul retrieval today is because you saw the interview I did with Gloria Masters about sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And you wrote to me and said, listen, why don't we do a soul retrieval thing?
Well, there was a piece that she had said about people speaking out.
Yeah.
That people need to speak out. And then you go, yes, they should all speak out, and you say, I'm an Aries, and I go, yeah, I'm an Aries too. I totally get it where Mark's coming from. But then she's saying, well, they're not able to.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book called How to Be Well. And the premise of How to Be Well is, you know what's wrong in your life, but you don't have the personal power or the energy to fix things. So through exercises and daily steps and routines and practices, shamanic ways of thinking, you bring back bits and pieces of your energy.
Is this one of your Hay House books?
Yes, it is. I have
we
2
talked
books
about
of Hay House.
We've already talked about this.
We talked about those, yeah. So you bring back, but the book is great to have the paperback, because you just open, what do I need today? Open it, okay, I'll do this exercise.
That's great.
Because you know this person's treating you badly. You know that you have to stand up for yourself, and you get in the room with them. You might have written down what you want to say to them. You might have learned it off by heart what you want to say to them, but they're standing there right in front of you and you just can't. And that's the kind of people that I would work with. So if you get those soul pieces back,
you have
if
more
they
power.
meld with you, another piece comes back and another piece comes back, and then you become bigger. So you're not living in a ramshackle cabin in the woods anymore. You've got a proper little cottage with a picket fence and all that.
Yeah.
And there comes some point where you get over a threshold in yourself where you're then able to say all those things. So from that video that you and Gloria were doing, for me, it's not about giving them the words or finding your voice or not knowing what to say at all. They already know that. It's about people having the power behind them to be able to say, well, actually, no, it wasn't like that for me. Or, well, actually, no, I'm not going to do this with you anymore. And that's really hard.
Well, the strength to say no is something I've long struggled with myself.
Yeah.
Because, I want to please everybody. And then I end up letting everybody down because I haven't got enough time to please everybody.
You're definitely a healer.
Yeah.
That's the case.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to look after everybody, but it's just never been possible. And the same with business. I'd always say yes to things. But I teach people in business, say no. Turn the clients away because you've got to go with the good ones. And how do you know which one the good one? Well, you follow your intuition.
No, it's really interesting, Mark, because I have it in my past career when I was working in corporate, working in business, I had a job where they didn't have any job for me to do. And I wandered into the training room and I found conflict resolution negotiation tapes, where we had things on tape because, all those years ago. So I learned the crisis management statements, I learned the negotiating statements, and I took them and I went, these would be really useful to use in healing with your relationships. And then I had one to say to my manager, which was, when you don't give me any work to do, I feel like I'm useless. What are you going to do about it? And it kind of sounds a bit threatening, so you have to kind of play with it and fill with it. But I found myself not able to say that. And I'm going, why am I not able to say it? So it's really, you know what you want to say. You need to get that power back. And that's why doing it in little pieces over a longer period of time, instead of, say, the grand ceremony that I was just speaking about, or bringing back this big piece of you that's struggling, that's said, but your life is still shit, and I don't trust you to look after me enough. That there might be some piece of work that you need to do in order to allow that piece to come back. But here's another thing that I do that other people don't really do, which is ask the question, what would you do if you were completely in your power? How would the world look like to you if you were at your best self right now? And what's the fear around that? And why will you sabotage yourself and not let you have that? And then we do that work too. So it's more likely that these changes will be permanent.
Yeah, so you had this idea of doing a soul retrieval group event.
Yes.
which I'll just look to camera, which we're going to do. The link is near this video. And I put this up on the social media, and somebody came back and said, and I was a bit curt with them. They said, sounds like an opportunity for energy harvesting. And then I told them off, and then you popped in and said, okay, yes, you understand that. So explain how this is not going to be an opportunity for energy harvesting.
So a mass event for me is a mass teaching event, as opposed to let's open everybody's energy fields up and let whatever come in and take whatever they want, because that's completely the opposite of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, because I've always been very reluctant to be involved in mass meditations.
Yes.
For the very same reason. When Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey were doing these things 7 or 8 years ago
But
online.
that's different, right? And I'm really glad you brought that up, because you got Deepak Chopra, Oprah Winfrey, you're connecting into their energy, into their group, and you don't know who else is in their group. So any of these mass meditations where there's 200 million people are going to sit down at 11 minutes past 11 on Saturday the 11th of whatever, whose energy are you connecting into? So you're closing your eyes and you're going into yourself, and then you're opening your beautiful energy field and you're connecting into this mass meditation. It could be like walking into a war ground or a battleground. So it's not going to be like that at all. We're going to know who everybody is, first of all, who signs up for this. And my guides are going to meet their guides. We're going to have a chat. We might even do a preamble before we do it, but it's all going to be seriously protected. And then, as you know, just as I've been saying to you, we're not dragging these soul pieces back, kicking and screaming. What we'll be doing is teaching people how to do this for themselves. And then I'll offer an opportunity for people, if they feel comfortable, to do one with me now. And then what I love about these events, because I run online healing all the time, is that you might be very nervous or unsure of what's going to happen, so you watch it on the live, but then you watched it. So the healing is still in the video. Go watch it again, and you go, I know what we're doing next. I can do this. And you go a little bit deeper with that, and you come away, you absorb it, you say, I'm going to do it again. You go and you go a little bit deeper. So it's layers and layers upon layers of energy is woven into these things, and you can access the layer that you're the most comfortable with when you're ready to.
Yeah, and you know, people who come to this live online thing don't have to reveal themselves. They can stay anonymous online.
No, not at all. They don't even have to. They could just be observers and sit there with their arms crossed and their legs folded and go, this is a pile of shite, you know, I don't think this is going to do anything. But then go off and think about it and say, well, what's the harm? I should try it.
Well, I think, you know, a big part of what I've been doing in the last couple of years is accidentally, inadvertently, or divinely guided, is trying to show people how to decode themselves and to rebuild themselves for the new earth, right? And you know, that involves all sorts of things like astrology, numerology, soul retrieval, energy healing, everything. It's all part of the 5D puzzle, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally, yeah. And it's, I mean, even me, I've been doing healing work for years and years and years, and I still need a healer. Because there's things that I don't see that I need.
The builder never finishes their own house.
No, they don't. Well, that's my podcast, Healing for the Healers. How do you look after yourself when you are the healer? And so we need each other more than, you know, you got the chimpanzees in the tree picking the lice off each other. You know, so we have to do these things together.
And dogs lick each other's asses.
But to know who you are at this point in time. So let's say, and I hate saying you're a starseed born into a family from a different energy, but, you know, just imagine you're a starseed born into a family that just doesn't get you. For somebody to say, okay, but you have all of these gifts here, and you have all of these gifts here, and you didn't realize it, and some small voice in you says, actually, I did know this. I just needed someone to see it. And then I need the energy behind my action in order to, you know, go and explore what that is.
Well, I think that's been the thing for me over the last 10 years, is like this voice just kept driving me to experience all these different healings and modalities and go on training courses and go on retreats and weekends. And most of the time I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, well, that's, you know, as I said before, that's why I wrote the book, because everybody has all of their way of doing it. It's not my way, it's not your way, and you take one piece from this person and one piece from that person, and, you know, so just offering your own pieces out there and see, does it work, does it not work. But if you got a small piece of your energy back from doing a soul retrieval, that would lead you into remembering that you're an artist, that could change your life. You know, and that's why I think being able to do this for yourself, because back, you know, When I was needing healers back when I was 20, healers were getting hooks into people. So you come back and see me next week, and you're going to come back and see me next week, you know. And here's so it's almost like, so I'm going to put my hook in you. I'm going to drain from you while I'm giving you this, and you're looking at, oh, this is fantastic. I'm taking from you here, so, and then you'll come back and see me next week.
Yep.
And I up front never wanted to do that. And
Yep.
so I've had people come and see me because I say to them straight, I don't want anything from you. And I think when people are looking at these mass events or these online events, or what's she going to take, what does she want, it's a real valid fear, because people do that. They absolutely do that. In fact, my novel is based on that. Because that's how else can I explain this? Only through fiction, you know, how healers get their hooks in and they create communities. And it's like the hierarchies where they're feeding their energy up to the next level and up to the next level. And it's about stepping away from those systems, about taking back your own energy yourself. And it's also about recognizing, well, now I have that power here. I'm going to look after myself better. I'm going to upgrade the standard of self-care that I give to myself. And that means not getting the phone sometimes, or not spending as long as you might do with people that drain you, you know, or saying, okay, I need to take a day off this week. You know, you say you have a mental health day. Why not have a spiritual health day? I'm going to take the day off and I'm just going to do healing on myself. And that could be something as beautiful as walking in a place like this, standing next to a tree.
That's why we came here.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, sat behind a desk looking at a screen, not so healthy.
I know.
And here we are
and I
amongst
think
the trees.
of how the world has always been in the mind. Everything's the mind, and it's very clinical. And you bring it down to the heart, and you bring it down to the soul. That piece that comes back is the piece that you can see a different shade of green or blue, or you know, appreciate the sky more, or appreciate yourself more. And again, that's scary for some people. You know, if I appreciate myself more, is that going to turn me into a fucking idiot and everyone's going to hate me? You know, it's like, so you have to deal with that first.
Well, I think that's really great stuff. And I think maybe what we'll do now is we'll go and show people how to expand their energy field by connecting into the earth and a bit of grounding. And then we'll talk about what you think to the state of play at the moment. So I've come with Abby near this gorgeous tree underneath a canopy, and we're both going to talk through our own techniques for expanding our energy field, connecting into the earth, and just basically a simple thing to do every morning. Is that what you do? Is that when you do it?
Oh, I would do it if I was upset, you know, because I live in the city. I would make time to just hop in the car and just drive somewhere like this and connect into an old friend, because, you know, each tree is like a being itself, so to introduce yourself to it first, and then what you can do is you can do it then in your mind's eye. When you have that connection in the land, you can do it wherever, you can do it whenever you need to, so it's great. But it's always good to reinforce it by actually coming to the land and doing it here as well.
So I'm going to hold this mic to you while you talk us through it. The camera's over there if you want to explain to the viewers what you're doing.
Okay, well, what I'm doing here is I'm going to connect into the tree, but because trees are beings in themselves, you have to kind of introduce yourself to them. So energetically, my energy connects to this tree, and, you know, you can touch the tree and go, hello, tree, can I work with you? Very rarely you get a no. But what's really interesting when you connect to a tree is that the tree is going up and up and up and out, but it's also going down and down and down and out. And when you go down and down and down and out, to visualize the branches of the roots just the same as the branches of the tree itself, it's as above, so below, then suddenly you feel, well, you know, I can expand as well, because there's something here holding space for me to feel safe to open, because this is one of the things that people do. We shrink when we're around other people. We shrink in the city. We shrink when we're trying to please everybody. So to take that moment to pull yourself then out of where your thoughts have been going, and imagine that they're winding down and coming into you as you expand and open, and then you can touch the tree for support, or just connecting in your mind's eye as you go down in your mind, down to the roots of the tree, where you can then visualize your Earth Star chakra, which is a beautiful ball of light down there, and it can, you know, give yourself a time to see, is it bright, is it dim, and just paying it attention can brighten it up and make it stronger, and then you can sink it further down into the earth if you feel that you want to get bigger so it holds you better, you know, you're not going to topple over. Then bringing your mind up to your body, up to your hips, to your heart, your stomach, your third eye, top of your head, then up to the top, and then opening out. But nobody's here, nobody's looking at you, so just take a minute and go, okay, I'm going to open out again, far from them. But, you know, because we hide when people are looking at us, to go, okay, so I've opened out to what I think I am, but now let's open out to what I really am. And then you just open out, and it's like some people might feel that they're unzipping their spine, releasing wings. They're going to be like dragon wings, fairy wings, angel wings, just opening right out. And then taking a breath, not to rush from this place, because this is where you start to recognize yourself and remember who you are. So to take deep breaths, maybe check the Earth Star. Do you need to sink it down a little bit more? Do you need to come out a little bit more? And then to really recognize, I'm doing this with my fingers, it's like you're marking in your physical body how I feel right now in this moment. So then when you catch yourself shrinking, you can go, oh yeah, I forgot, and you can open. But if you spend the time to open and get used to how big you are energetically, then you notice it more when you shrink, that you can, okay, I'll open up now. Obviously, in a room full of people, like you're having dinner over your family's house, and you open up really big, it could be threatening to them.
Yeah, this is why when I'm in the city, I draw it in close to me.
Yeah.
If I'm on the tube or something in London, I pull it in, and then as soon as I can, I push it out, and I visualise similar things to you. But I go barefoot, and I just imagine that Earth star beneath the ground, connecting to that, and then let that come up through, and then the light come in from the top, and as that happens, it naturally expands.
Yeah.
And I think I've talked about this on my channel. I've told you about it before. With Michael taught me how that expands your energy field from like 15 feet to 50, 60 feet.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, like you said, it can be threatening to people, which I found that too.
What I do though is I don't deliberately shrink in the city. I get even bigger in the city. And
Was that because you like annoying people?
Because I like annoying people. No, because I'm bringing in more light, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, fuck it, and send the light out. And anybody, but I send it out with the intention that anybody who wants it to receive it, anyone who's ready to receive it can receive it. And anyone who doesn't, they're just not going to even pick it up because it's in a different layer, different level, different dimension to them. But I don't want to have to compromise my shape anymore, just depending on where I am in the world. So we need to be able to be, ourselves all the time when, when we feel right to, and get used to it, and to do it, and to come away and say, that was okay. I didn't die, I didn't get hurt, I didn't pick up anything nasty, because not only did you expand, but you also made sure that your auric, the edges were sealed, so that nothing gets in.
Do you have a kind of ritual when you first connect into something like a tree like this?
I was usually asking permission.
So that's it. You just ask permission.
Wait for a yes, and sometimes there's a no. Sometimes there is a no, and you have to honor that. You have to respect that and say, okay, it's not you. It could be the other tree over there, or maybe I'm not supposed to do it today.
Let me just check. That was a maybe.
Yeah, I hear a grumpy old man.
No, he's fine. I'm not a grumpy old man.
No, the tree.
He's definitely saying yes.
He's not used to all the attention.
I know. You're gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah. I like that.
Beautiful. Well, so and then if you've connected to it, you can just just tap into that anytime.
Well, you tap into the memory of going down that deep and opening up so big. But when you do finish, when you're actually with the tree in this physical reality, you say thank you to the tree, and then you disconnect from the tree so that you're not conjoined with it, or it doesn't start pulling on your emotional energy. So to see yourself, like taking a step away, energy coming back, you're still big, and then you can say thank you to the tree, to remind me how big I am. It's really about doing it your way, what works for you.
Cool. Let's go on to talk about something else. Thanks, Abby.
Okay.
So, Abby, here we are, sat on the Jealous Wall, built in 1760 by somebody who wanted to block his neighbour's view.
Yes, his brother's view.
Yeah. There's no jealousy here. What I'm interested in is, where do you think we're at right now? I mean, where are we? June 2022.
Yeah.
We've just had the craziest 2 years in history. As a healer, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? And you're intuitive and all of that.
It's interesting because I was doing traditional grounding, traditional connecting in for many years, and then one day it was like, oh, Mother Earth doesn't want me to ground into her. What's going on? And this would have been like 2012, 2013. So this is when I learned to not go by the book, and to go with what is right in front of me, what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling. And I thought, okay, well, it's like just some delicate fabric of something brand new that's being created. And I saw in my head like a scaffolding over the earth that was just not ready yet. And it's like, so are you brave enough to step on something that's not created yet? So I've kind of been inviting in more knowledge, more information, learning about what's going on, and tentatively taking steps. So I feel where we are now is that that fabric is complete. There's a foundation, but we need to build on it. We need to create the towns, the buildings, the world that we're going to live in. But what's really interesting is that the old stuff is still there too. So sometimes when I'm working with groups and we're going to ground, I just say, okay, do we go into Earth today? Do we ground to a different planet? Are we just going to be here in our hearts? Where is we going? How are we doing? And there's been a lot of fluctuations, a lot of movement, a lot of changes. So I've been looking to what other people have been saying too as validation for what I'm feeling. And I think one of the best images I've got recently has been from Pam Gregory. She's an astrologer, and she says, imagine you're in the theatre and there's a play on, but there's actually two plays on, and they're in two different dimensions, and you cannot see either of them. So one of the plays is like a horror play where there's violence and gore and death and just horrific, and then the other play is beautiful and uplifting and inspiring. So you're sat there in the theatre. Now here's the thing that's interesting to me is it's not about what your brain is telling you should watch. It's also about what your heart knows and your personal power and what your gut instinct is. And it's like there's all this horror going on. But I want to watch the lovely stuff, but maybe I need to see what's going on, the horror. And so right now it's like we're kind of torn between which one to watch. And the more you watch one, so it's like me personally, I've stepped away from the news, I've stepped away from media, I'm putting, into creativity, into beauty. It's starting to take more substance. It's starting to be less of a draw to go to the other side, but all of this is happening all at once. So we need to have the power to say no to things. We need to deliberately choose what we tune into, and that can be really difficult. But that's kind of where I think we are at the moment. And if more of us tune into the good stuff, it'll become more substantial and easier for other people to tune into that as well. So we have to be like the fighters, the warriors out there saying, I'm going to do this and no one's going to stop me. And that can be hard. If you haven't done your inner work, it can be hard.
Well, this idea of things being hard is, I think it's a belief.
Yeah.
And if you believe it's hard, then it becomes hard. But if you choose for it to be easy, it becomes easy. And that Pam Gregory vision correlates with the Australian astrologer Tamara, who was on the Catherine Edwards show not long ago, and she said because of the Jupiter in Aries or Aries in Jupiter, I can't remember which way around it is, first time in 12 years, that this period combined with the Mercury in retrograde period would create this everything coming to the surface. Just there's not going to be anywhere to hide.
Yes.
Everything has to come up for everybody in order for this massive clearance to go on, and this is why we're seeing people all confused and fighting and arguing and all
But
of this
you're
kind of
dead
stuff.
right, though, about things being hard as being a concept, because you would have had to have, let's say, stood in the river for 30 hours before you can go on the shamanic journey, whereas now you can just do it like that. So people can delete, uncreate, remove their deep, heavy emotional pain much quicker now than they ever could before. It's a fabulous opportunity, in fact, to do your deep inner work. But if you have locked all that darkness and horror away in a wardrobe somewhere in the basement of you in that house, that we were talking about, the fear of opening it, the fear of the fear, is what stops you, and then that's pulling you back into that fear-based matrix. Whereas if you say, okay, so having a healer with you, say, to stand there, hold your hand, I'm here, let's do it together, we'll open the wardrobe, and out pops this horrible little tiny teddy bear of a thing that you thought was a massive ferocious beast. And you go, oh, is that all it was? Well, let's just sort it out. And then you give him a hug and he turns into something beautiful and you move on. Then you see that's when your brain starts telling you, but you haven't really done it because that was too easy and you have to go back and do it again. So getting control of your thoughts is vital right now. Becoming the master of your thoughts is like training a wild dog in the garden who keeps digging up the ground, and you have to keep coaxing it in. You have to keep rewarding yourself. Good behavior gets reward, and then you have to step up there. And it's tedious. It can be time consuming because your brain, people's brains are the boss of them most of the time, and for you to say, no, my brain is a part of me, it's not the fundamental aspect of who I am. And so I'm going to, I hear what you say, brain, I write down all the things you've said, but now I'm going to spend some time in my heart. So you just, hush down a little bit and say, I'm not abandoning you, because then the brain's like, but what about me, I'm not abandoning you, just, take it easy, take a breath, Sit in the heart. You can come and sit in my heart with me if you like. You say to the brain, say, because I'm not leaving you behind, but you're not ruling me anymore. You know, and then that's the balance, and then you've got your strength then that gives you the stamina to be able to do that. So people can do it. It's just, you know, do you trust it? Do you trust the process? Do you trust what is the world is telling you if you suddenly have access to all of this energy and all of your own resources? You know, it's a fabulous opportunity. It really, really is.
Well, I've found this whole 2 years to be one of learning to trust your own intuition, trust the process, and as Q said, trust the plan.
Yeah.
And all of that resonates with me. And it's not been easy, but I've been trying to train myself to say, to just trust. When you trust it, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was been telling people, you know, most of the work is you sitting with everything that you are, but allowing all of those aspects of you to come in and be with you so you are substantial in the room. So not like, you know, leaving your body disassociating, all those soul pieces, all the power of you just gone, but to be powerful in the room. And then coming into alignment where you're shining just as brightly from your knowing as from your strength and your inner confidence, and then you decide what you want and something shifts in your energy field, and then that draws it in and attracts it in. So getting all of that groundwork as well, is it like preparing is 80% of the work, or even more than that. But once you've done that, then you say, okay, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, and then that's when the miracles show up. That's when you get the parking space, when somebody comes along who you've been dying to meet, or, you know,
I'm getting
doors
that all
open.
the time. You know, Age of Aquarius, instant manifestation. I'm seeing this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And every time it happens, it affirms it, and the more it affirms it, the more trust you build up, and then it becomes like an exponentially.
And you know what's
faster
really
thing.
interesting, and you were mentioning this earlier, is that it's so easy to forget.
Because of the amnesia.
You forget. So I say to people who are just starting out in this manifestation, start with something small. Like today I want someone to, you know, I want a free coffee. A free coffee could mean that your husband comes in the kitchen, makes you coffee and hands you one. That's a free coffee.
My husband.
My husband, there's a hint there. But you see, a free coffee might not be what you expect it to be. It doesn't mean you're going to go in and Costa or one of these chains that are just going to give you a free coffee. But you say, okay, so you write that down in a journal and you say, okay, today is Wednesday, whatever the date is, I asked for free coffee, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, somebody handed me a coffee. Then you have it there so that in a week's time, when you're like, oh yeah, that never happened. Oh, but it's written down in a journal.
Do you remember the film Memento?
Memento.
It's about a guy who had short-term memory loss.
Oh, he kept
Guy
forgetting
Pearce.
everything.
Yeah, and he puts post-it notes all around his place just to remind him of what he'd been up to.
I think it reminds me of Doctor Who, where they're marking on their skin.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was
and
the
they
silence.
have all the marks. Yeah.
But I've been teaching people to use post-it notes around the house for manifesting, for example.
Absolutely.
And I think it's similar to journaling. Because the other thing is, when you write it down, it becomes real in this reality.
Yes.
Because it becomes a real thing, rather than just a memory or thought that you have to remember to clap. But you said something interesting earlier about the amnesia machine.
Amnesia, yeah. It's not something that I say to many people. But I think guys on your channel will get this.
Yeah, they will.
I don't know where it is or what it is, but I think somewhere there's some kind of technology that's just been blasting out a frequency that is brainwashing you. That's just
Called
deleting.
TV and radio.
Well, that too.
And the mobile.
But even in the internet, even reading, even, you know, in between the lines, you know, there's very much energies out there that are there, you know, you're not seeing this, you're not hearing this. It's like the Jedi mind trick is being played on you. None of this happens. So you have to break through some kind of barrier first, and then you have to keep breaking through it. It gets easier and easier every time. You know, that's what I'm saying, write things down. Have reminders, post-its around the house is great, you know, but with your manifesting post-its, to also be aware of what you're thinking. Really important. You know, which play are you putting your energy into? Which movie are you watching? What, you know, what is your belief? And then it comes down to, do I deserve to have this? And then doing that work to say, yes, I do. I can be powerful. I can be big. I can show up in my stately home and take up my space in the world unapologetically.
And this is one of the reasons why the soul retrieval thing is so important, because it allows you to, that moves you towards the place where you are strong enough to forgive people, you're strong enough to accept, and you're strong enough to forgive yourself.
But even the expanding your energy piece, where you say, okay, well, here's somebody who's really annoying you, who wants to take you right up there, right in your chest, and then you expand your energy, push them out, and they're over there. Now, physically, they're in exactly the same place as they were, but energetically, you have given yourself that expansive space. You can breathe. And then you can hear them like over there. You can annoy me over there, and then I'll just tune you out if I want to tune you out. But they're not in your field. They're not taking your space. And I think so many people shrink to mimic or match the size of everybody else out there that wants you to be small, and then you just forget who you are. You forget how powerful you are. That's the amnesia thing, and it connects right back into that. And it's like, oh, good, here's someone forgetting. Let's up the amplitude on the forgetfulness and see what happens. So constantly, that's why, disconnecting from everything is so important. Reconnecting into you, reconnecting into your body, reconnecting into the land, connecting into the earth and planets that you like, connecting into your guides. I mean, if your spirit guides, if your angels are you wanting to support you, then why would you not want to talk to them? So,
yeah. I talk to them every day.
Yeah, I know. I think, I'm really annoying because I'm always asking for stuff. Like, but who am I asking? I'm asking me.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
I can ask me anything I want.
So, on a final note, how do you feel about the future?
I'm really hopeful. I really am, because I'm seeing it now. What wave are we surfing? So on the days where I'm deliberately choosing to surf the energies of the higher frequency, making that effort and not actually being hard on myself, or not doing but being, human doings and human beings. When you are being, when you bring all those pieces of you in, everything does become much easier and much more exciting. And I think a few years ago, Mark, I thought, well, I've learned everything I want to learn. I'm not interested in anything else, just be here because of the kids. But suddenly I'm finding, oh my God, what is this? And this is fascinating me, and creativity. And it's like I just finished writing 3 novels, and I've never written a novel before. And I'm like, what am I going to do next? I haven't been this excited about life in years, I have to say. And it's wonderful. It's exciting to be alive, as long as you don't get sucked back into the fear. So you have to, being deliberate, paying attention to what you're paying attention to, and life, I think, could be completely and utterly wonderful, more so than before. So.
Well, that's a perfect way to end it. Thank you, Abby Wynne, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be offering the Soul Retrieval, to be teaching people how to do this, because then they can feel this too. And it's here for everyone. You just have to get the how to do it, and that's my piece. So.
Okay, should we do the COVID handshake or the pop handshake? Thank you.